All right. I need to give you a little more information on this podcast I've been preparing for with Dr. Nathan Bryan on the role of nitric oxide in our body. I did another episode the other week on the role of nitric oxide, and I just interviewed Dr. Nathan. And there's so much more to talk about as I'm working at a root cause approach, working on identifying people's missing pieces of the puzzle to rebuild their health, their vitality, so they can thrive again as they age and not blame getting older as the issue. Nitric oxide is important. And as we get older, we make less of certain things as nitric oxide. But as I always say, don't blame the aging process, embrace it, and do things differently. Don't expect the same results of a program or your nutrition, your lifestyle exercise program that you did when you're 40, 30, 20. We need to do things a little differently. As we talk all the time about nutrition and fasting, when not to fast, how long to fast, what supplements to take, how to start your day, how to end a day. I call this the holistic method, where I'm working on nutrition, your exercise, sleep, stress management, movement, mobility throughout the day, digestion, gut health, hydration, mineral balancing, and happiness. Gratitude, play, laughter is all in there. And really looking at how to take a holistic approach to live your best life, to be your best self, to show up every day feeling happy and energetic to start the day, instead of feeling depressed, anxious, exhausted, struggling with brain fog, trying to remember what you just did, not sleeping at night. Just because you may exercise, you may be an athlete of some level, but we're not always healthy from the inside out. So my mission on this podcast is to help provide insights, maybe going a little deeper for some people. They don't really want to know all the information I share, but I want you to understand what you need to do today, have more tools in your toolbox to help improve how you age, as only you can change your lifestyle habits, control your exercise program, manage your life, and make the choices what you put in your mouth and what you drink, and how to get yourself into bed and have a good night's sleep. Take a holistic approach, but don't look for the magic pill, the magic supplement to take. First, we need to take care of ourselves and take ownership. And part of that is understanding what goes wrong, what gets offline. And when we talk about restoring vitality and being our best self as we age, we want to create metabolic harmony as the body all works together. And the vagus nerve is the conductor, I find, of all this. And all of our players need to be working, and we have an order of operations of everything. As we talk to Dr. Nathan, I'll post a video up on my YouTube channel as soon as I can, because it's important information. We need to think about this and read his book, as I just have right here, Nitric Oxide, and understand the secret of nitric oxide. And some information you hear out there might not be so accurate. And I'm looking, as I work with the root cause doc, understanding the role of nitric oxide in our body, that we need to do things a little differently, and working on understanding, as a health investigator, I'm putting the missing pieces of your puzzle together. So with Dr. Nathan and the role of nitric oxide and 30 years of research, we're diving in to one of the most overlooked yet most important molecules in human health. The role of nitric oxide sometimes is called the miracle molecule. Nitric oxide plays a critical role in keeping our blood vessels healthy, supporting circulation, regulating blood pressure, improving oxygen delivery, and even protecting our brain as well as our metabolism. But here's the problem. Most of us are unaware that we are deficient in nitric oxide. And nitric oxide production naturally declines as we age, starting as early as age 30. And in our modern lifestyle habits, chronic stress, and even way too commonly prescribed medications as PPIs, and then people are also using mouthwash that's killing all the good and bad microbes in your oral cavity that you didn't probably know that you're doing. It's no wonder that so many people are struggling with nitric oxide insufficiency, and they don't know because they don't realize the signs and symptoms related to low nitric oxide. So here's some common signs and symptoms I will talk about with Dr. Nathan about nitric oxide deficiency. High blood pressure. Are you on blood pressure medication because you have high blood pressure? Did you ever get to have someone help you understand why is your blood pressure high? What is pushing up that blood pressure? Is it nitric oxide? We want to have the blood vessels have lots of space, not closed space. So we want to improve vasodilation versus vasoconstriction. What about cold hands, cold feet, varicose veins, swelling in the legs, fatigue, poor recovery after your workouts? What if you struggle up here? Brain fog, memory issues, migraines? What about struggling in the bedroom? Erectile dysfunction, low libido, hard to get erections, men and women. How about insulin resistance, type 2 diabetes, stubborn blood sugar problems, and you're trying to do all the right things? Wound healing, hard to heal. And what about frequent infections? So when nitric oxide is low, your circulation suffers, your metabolism gets slower, and the aging process just accelerates. So my interview with Dr. Nathan, again, you have to read the book because it's hard to cover all this information with all my questions in 1 hour. How nitric oxide is made in the body and why it declines with age, what happens when we don't have enough nitric oxide. And I'm sweating because it is humid and I'm in my glass house with the windows open and there's no air. So if you see me glistening, it's because it's really humid, end of August in North San Diego, inland, and it's 86 degrees and humid. So a big topic I want you to learn more about, if you are on antacids, PPIs, you're taking antacid over the counter. These medications, as I talked about with Dr. Nathan, should be blacklisted. I learned this 10 years ago with a friend that was a client, and she was trying to get PPIs to be pulled off the pharmaceutical list. They cause so many problems, and they're not even necessary, and they're not causing or treating the root cause. So if you have been on PPIs, you're on them. If you're taking antacid, you're taking Pepcid, it is not the solution to having acid reflux. It's the exact opposite. So we will talk about the surprising impact of PPIs and medications on your nitric oxide pathways. We will talk about how lifestyle, nutrition, and even the oral microbiome play a role in producing nitric oxide. We'll dive into some of the advanced connections with the glycolytic layer, varicose veins, migraines, insulin resistance, a little bit on the vagus nerve toxicity, and more. But as we only had an hour, so it's so hard to talk about all these topics. So let me know your questions. I'll try to do a follow-up. But there's a lot of exciting research around therapies of methylene blue that I just read, tried to read a book someone sent me, and I was so frustrated I could not listen to it because there's a lot of misinformation. So I asked Dr. Nathan about this topic and how nitric oxide support information is based on research. So we need to understand and look a little deeper when we see ads, when we see videos, podcasts, social media influencers trying to say, have this for that, but make sure you're taking time to do your own research and making sure what are they claiming and what's it based on, what science? So Dr. Nathan Bryant is one of the world's leading researchers on nitric oxide biology and therapeutics, and he spent decades studying this molecule and pioneering strategies to restore nitric oxide production for better cardiovascular health, brain function, and healthy aging. So if you've wondered why your circulation is a problem, your metabolism, recovery aren't what they used to be, or if you're looking for natural ways to protect your cardiovascular and brain health as you age, this is an episode you don't want to miss. So let's go in, check out the video with Dr. Nathan on my YouTube channel, Coach Debbie Potts, and check out his book and their N101 website. I'll put the link in the show notes. You can get a discount off their products, but make sure, as you will learn in our interview, and I'm totally sweating. I don't need to do my sauna today. Oh, I have to go shower and change again. And it's not a hot flash, it's humid. When you listen to the interview, don't just think you take these supplements and solve everything. You need to do the work, as I said in the beginning. We can't just rely on supplements to fix things. They are part of what we work on. As an FDN practitioner, we call it the DRESS protocol. DRES and S. The diet, the rest, the exercise, the stress reduction, supplementation is part of it. You have to do the work. So when I'm talking about product review, supplements, shake mixes, nothing makes up for the simple thing of getting outside and watching that morning sunlight for 5 minutes, getting out and moving. Work on breathing through your nose, not breathing through your mouth. Fixing these problems, getting that nitric oxide production is key. But if we're still using mouthwash, we're still in that moldy environment. It was what Dr. Donald Dennis said yesterday on our call. It's similar to drying off while you're in the shower, right? It's can't fix what's going on, the root cause of why your nitric oxide is low, unless you work on what is the root cause above that. So dive into this information, but realize you need to take care of you. And understanding that PPIs reduce nitric oxide production. They reduce your stomach acid. They impair nitrate conversion. So when we have dietary nitrates from beets, spinach, arugula in the right amount, 300 to 400 milligrams we have to get that conversion of nitrates into nitrites in the oral microbiome Dr. Nathan talks about. And then they convert nitrites to nitric oxide in the stomach organ when it's acidic environment. So when your stomach acid is low from being on PPIs, taking antacids, you have less conversion. So you have less substrate available for nitric oxide production. Also, the oral and gut microbiome are disrupted. The nitrate to nitrite conversion depends on this oral bacteria. So we talk about avoiding mouthwash and fluoride. When PPIs shift your gut microbiome, they can promote dysbiosis and reducing the microbe support that we need for this nitrate to nitrite nitric oxide pathway. We also need to realize we have certain nutrients that we need, cofactors, to produce nitric oxide that we didn't get into. If you're on long-term medications that are PPIs, they deplete magnesium, B12, vitamin C, iron, and folate. These are all important cofactors for endothelia nitric oxide synthase activity, the NOS pathway, and also the antioxidant production or protection that we do need. So without these cofactors, nitric oxide production drops and oxidative stress rises. So we need to be aware when we're on these medications that your doctor's prescribing you, do I need them? Is this solving the root cause of why I have antacid or acid reflux, or why I have a migraine, or why I have high blood pressure? Getting a medication doesn't solve the why, and you need to understand the research done on it, as Dr. Nathan talked about. How long are you supposed to be on it? What is the half-life of this medication? How long is it in my body? What are the side effects of it? As PPIs are associated with increase in cardiovascular risk, higher rates of heart attacks and strokes in long-term users of PPIs. The impaired nitric oxide signaling as a result of these PPIs leads to poor vasodilation, high vascular resistance, oxidative stress on the endothelium. So we need to understand that medications can be dangerous for you. Don't put all your trust and faith into your doctor. Do your own research. PPIs blunt nitric oxide production as the lower the stomach acid, less nitrates, less nitrite to nitric oxide conversion. We reduce that microbiome diversity, less nitrates, we have less bacteria, good bacteria. Less nutrient cofactors as magnesium, B12, vitamin C, folate when we're on PPIs. And we have more endothelial dysfunction with reduction in our nitric oxide signaling, and we have that higher oxidative stress. So this is why PPI users that I keep seeing, that's why I'm getting angry, because they're way overprescribed, and I'm working with clients that are all seem to be given them. And they're not just for a month, they've been on them for years. And so now they're at risk for heart attacks and all these other issues as strokes and all these other side effects of being on this PPI that was not supposed to be used. It's been prescribed for the wrong reasons, and now people are stuck on them, and you need to learn how to taper off them properly. PPI users often report fatigue, poor circulation, brain fog, higher cardiovascular risk over time, and this is all tied back to nitric oxide deficiency. So many clues to look at if you have low stomach acid and nitric oxide production, something we need to go into a little bit more. But understanding all these side effects of nitric oxide deficiency, as we went over in the video, circulatory and vascular symptoms, high blood pressure, hypertension, as nitric oxide normally dilates blood vessels. So if you're deficient nitric oxide, you have increased vascular resistance. Cold hands and feet, you have poor microcirculation. If you struggle with varicose veins and edema, you have weak vascular tone and poor endothelial health. If you have poor wound healing, a sign of reduction in blood flow and nutrient delivery. If you have erectile dysfunction for men, nitric oxide is required for vasodilation. If you have neurological symptoms as migraines and headaches, so many people are on migraine medications and they're not treating the why. Vascular dysregulation and impaired dilation of cerebral blood vessels is the issue. Brain fog, memory issues, nitric oxide supports blood flow and neurotransmission in the brain. Low heart rate variability, vagus nerve dysfunction, impaired signaling, and autonomic imbalance, our nervous system. Insulin resistance, elevated blood sugar. Nitric oxide helps glucose uptake into the muscles. Deficiency in nitric oxide increases your risk for metabolic syndrome. Nitric oxide facilitates oxygen delivery and mitochondria efficiency. So we'll talk about that in our call with Dr. Nathan. If you have poor recovery after exercise, nitric oxide has a reduced oxygen nutrient delivery if we don't have enough, and a slower clearance of waste products. If you have chronic low-grade inflammation, nitric oxide regulates the immune cell activity. Deficiency skews towards inflammation. Frequent infections or slow immune response, nitric oxide, if it's impaired, it is helping with pathogen defense. Now, of course, cardiovascular symptoms are major. As with less nitric oxide production, we have less vasodilation, and oxygen delivery to working muscles is decreased. So we might experience shortness of breath during exertion, poor endurance capacity. Inefficient oxygen utilization is an issue with low nitric oxide. How about those with sleep apnea and they snore? What if you are a mouth breather and you're using a CPAP machine to sleep at night? Your impaired airway tone and vasoregulation issues can be also connected to poor nitric oxide. Now, genetic clues, we've got to look at that, but also aging, systemic clues, skin, wrinkles, poor blood flow, loss of collagen can be related to low nitric oxide. Sexual dysfunction, we talked about poor circulation and hormone signaling imbalances connected to low nitric oxide. If you get dizzy, you have orthostatic intolerance, you have impaired vascular adaptation to posture changes. Relationship there, again, to impaired nitric oxide. So we need to look at these root cause connections with less nitric oxide production in the blood vessels, less conversion of nitrates to nitrites in the oral microbiome, and converting that to nitric oxide in acidic stomach. Stomach acid is there for a reason. And yes, aging, we have a natural decline in nitric oxide production, early as 30s, but we can do something about it. Low deficiencies, we talked about low arginine, citrulline, folate, antioxidants, and all the cofactors needed to create nitric oxide synthesis. So get those ingredients on board. Prioritize your sleep, manage your stress, get the right amount of exercise, the Goldilocks effect, not too much, not too little, and get the right type of low intensity zone 1-2 or interval training with the right recovery in between those intense intervals. So we need to make sure nitric oxide deficiency isn't showing up in your body via poor circulation, poor oxygen delivery, poor signaling, because this is impacting your cardiovascular health, metabolic health, neurological, and immune systems all at once. Metabolic chaos. We can look at this chronic inflammatory response syndrome. All this accumulates. So just working on this is part of the puzzle. It's not the only way. We need to improve nitric oxide production, but we again need to look at the why is that production low. Don't just blame the aging process. It's a lot of time our lifestyle habits, the medications is PPI, the mouthwash, your microbiome, and your poor eating habits, not getting the nutrients and proper digestion, get them from your food. So just needed to dive into that because I think it's so important and we're not talking enough about it. And I want to help get this information out from Dr. Nathan Bryan. So again, check out his book and his website and N101 and save code COACHDEBBIEPOTTS. Thanks to listening and helping you learn how to be your best self in the future. The Future You program with the Holistic Method.